Welcome back to my channel, Colleen Medley Makes. I'm Colleen, and I'm going to show you what I made. I'm an East Coast native, currently living in Southern California, DIYing my way through renter-friendly apartment updates and wedding planning. Subscribe to follow along. In today's video, I'm giving a dingy old lampshade new life by recovering it with fabric. Let's get started. All you need for this project is fabric, spray adhesive, tacky glue, and scissors. I referenced a tutorial from a blog called Create Enjoy, which I'll link in the description. Let me start by showing you the lampshade I'm working with. So this lampshade belongs with a lamp that I actually found on the curb on a street on the Upper West Side in New York City. One night I was walking home after having dinner with some friends and happened across this beautiful blue lamp that was just sitting on the curb. Someone had definitely put it out because it was trash day and they no longer wanted it. And I couldn't resist. I picked it up, my friends were laughing at me, and I carried it home. It's a gorgeous lamp and it was totally free. Now I will say when I got the lamp home, it did not work. It would not turn on. So I did have to put a little bit of money into getting it repaired so that it would work. But that was worth it to me because the lamp itself I thought was worth saving. Now the lampshade is definitely worse for wear. It has some stains and imperfections, and it feels kind of unfinished. Even if it was in better condition, it doesn't really feel like a finished lampshade. So it's always been my intention to fix this, to do something about it. It just has taken me a bit, but I thought it would work well to recover. I went over to Joann's to get the fabric for this project and was able to get it at a deep discount because they're going out of business. I purchased 3 yards of fabric, which I knew was much more than I would end up needing, but I wanted to get plenty in case of any errors or mishaps. I also figured I could use the extra fabric for another project, like making a pillowcase. I opted for a fabric with an all-over pattern that didn't have any straight lines like stripes or checks, since my lampshade is tapered. Now, if you have a drum lampshade that's straight, you might be able to use a more geometric or striped pattern. So I gathered my supplies on an outdoor surface covered with cardboard since I was going to be using spray adhesive. Now I really liked this tutorial from Create Enjoy because it was a bit more of a quick and dirty approach to covering your lampshade. Since my lampshade was pretty large and tapered, I thought it would be challenging to try to cut out a template from the fabric. Instead, in this tutorial, you kind of cover your shade as you go. So to start, I did kind of loosely cover my shade with the fabric just to make sure that it would line up in the way that I was envisioning. And then I began attaching the fabric to the shade. To do this, I sprayed some adhesive on a small portion of the shade and then stuck the fabric in place. I then slowly made my way around the shade, adding a little bit of spray adhesive, sticking down the fabric, and repeating that process. I did trim some fabric as I went, but I wanted to be cautious about doing that until I had made my way around the whole shade. When I reached the point where the edges of the fabric met, I did have a small gap. Now I think this was mostly because of the large size of my shade and the limitation of the width of the fabric, but I wasn't too concerned since this would be the back of the shade. I pulled the fabric as taut as I could to cover as much of the shade as possible, and then I cut an additional piece of fabric to fill in that space. To seal the 2 edges of fabric, I folded down the edge of one side and then glued it with that tacky glue. I think you could also use a glue gun or super glue for this, depending on what you have on hand. Since the shade is tapered, there was no way to have the fabric perfectly line up in a straight line, so it's really not the end of the world that I had to add in an additional piece of fabric. This is also why it was good to choose a fabric with an all-over pattern, so that it wasn't as obvious where all of these pieces of fabric were meeting. But most importantly, this is on the back side of the shade, which is facing the wall, and it won't be noticeable once it's on the lamp base. Once that was complete, I trimmed all of the excess fabric from the top and bottom of the shade, leaving a couple of inches that I could fold over to create a clean edge. I used the tacky glue again to attach the edges to the inside of the shade. Again, I wasn't too precious with this since it's the inside of the shade and won't be visible once it's on the lamp base. On the top where the frame meets the shade, I had to make a couple of slits in the fabric so that I could fold it over and glue it down. I also ended up trimming some of that excess fabric as it worked better to not have too much on the edges. And that was it. Here's my completed fabric lampshade on the lamp base. As I mentioned, this lamp is on the table in my entryway, and I'm working on a video documenting the full entryway makeover. I did recently put out a video about creating the gallery wall that you might notice in the background, so definitely check that out. And be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the full entryway makeover. This project took me about 30 minutes to complete, so it was a super easy, quick project that completely transformed my lampshade. And I couldn't be happier with the result. I would absolutely use this technique again and hope this inspired you to try it. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss more DIY and home decor content and insights from living car-free in Southern California. See you in the next one.